I sent my family $1, and in return, they sent the police. They thought it would break me. They thought I'd come crawling back, begging for the scraps of affection they called love. They were wrong. They taught me what betrayal felt like, and in the end, I taught them what it cost. My name is Ellen Parker, and this is the story of how I bought my freedom for $5,000, and made them pay the price. That if you've ever been the one who always answers the phone, the one who plans the parties, the one who remembers every birthday, and still felt completely invisible, then you're going to understand this story on a spiritual level. Do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, because today, we're not just telling a story, we're validating a feeling that too many of us have been forced to ignore. Let's get into it. Part 1, The Deafening Silence. To understand how a family can shatter, you first have to understand how it was built. Mine was built on a foundation of my own making. I was the load-bearing wall, the central beam, the one who held up the roof while everyone else complained about the weather. At 50 years old, I had spent the better part of 4 decades as Ellen, the reliable one. The family's designated adult. The planner, the fixer, the emotional switchboard operator. It wasn't a role I auditioned for, it was one I was born into. I was the eldest of 3 sisters, sandwiched between a mother, Carol, who saw affection as a transaction, and 2 younger siblings, Sharon and Brenda, who learned early on that taking was easier than giving. They orbited our mother like twin planets of entitlement, while I was the gravitational pull that kept the whole broken system from flying apart. If Sharon's car broke down at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, my phone rang. If Brenda needed someone to watch her kids because a last-minute brunch invitation was simply too good to pass up, I was her first and only call. When my mother needed to be driven to an endless series of doctor's appointments, only to declare herself miraculously healed the moment we passed a shopping mall, my gas tank was the one that ran on empty. I never complained. Not really. I'd sigh, I'd feel a familiar knot of resentment tighten in my gut, but I'd always say yes. Because that's what you do for family, right? You show up. That was the simple, unshakable rule I lived by. A rule I thought was universal. My daughter, Lily, was my entire world. She was the sun that my own quiet, little life revolved around. And as her 12th birthday approached, I was determined to give her a day that was as bright and wonderful as she was. For months, it was our secret project, a whispered conspiracy of joy. "Mom, can we get the big screen? The one for the backyard," she'd asked one night, her eyes wide with the kind of pure, unadulterated hope only a child can possess. "The biggest one they have," I promised, ruffling her hair. "We'll have an outdoor movie marathon. Popcorn, slushies, the works. And the cake? The triple-layer chocolate fudge with the raspberry filling? I'll bake it myself," I said. "Just like you like it." The planning became my second job. I spent evenings scrolling through Pinterest, mornings on the phone with rental companies. I ordered specialty balloons shaped like characters from her favorite movie. I hand-designed the invitations, each one a little work of art, and sent them out 6 weeks in advance. To my mother, Carol. To my sisters, Sharon and Brenda, and their husbands. To my nieces and nephews. The whole clan. The RSVPs trickled in, casual and breezy. "Of course we'll be there. Can't wait." Sharon texted, followed by a string of party emojis. "Wouldn't miss it for the world, hon," Brenda said over the phone, her voice already distracted by something else in the room. My mother simply replied, "Seen." I took their words at face value. I chose to believe them. Because despite everything, despite the years of evidence to the contrary, I still held on to the flimsy hope that for Lily, they would make an effort. That for one day, they would see her as I did. As someone who mattered. The day of the party was one of those perfect late summer Saturdays. The sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves in the big oak tree in our backyard. Lily was practically vibrating with excitement. She woke me up at dawn, her face a perfect picture of anticipation. "Is it time yet? Can we put up the balloons?" We spent the entire morning transforming the backyard into a kid's paradise. We hung streamers from the fence, inflated a mountain of balloons, and set up the giant inflatable movie screen, which looked like a monument to childhood dreams. The smell of freshly baked chocolate cake wafted from the kitchen. By 2 p.m., everything was perfect. The popcorn machine was ready, the candy bar was stocked, and a small mountain of presents sat waiting on a decorated table. The party was supposed to start at 3. At 3:05, Lily was perched on the top step of the back porch, her chin in her hands, scanning the street for cars. "They're probably just finding parking," she said, more to herself than to me. I smiled, a tight, forced thing. "Probably, sweetie. You know how your Aunt Sharon is with her new SUV." At 3:30, the ice in the slushy machine had started to melt into a sad, sugary soup. The perfect blue sky seemed to mock the stillness in our yard. My phone lay silent on the patio table. Not a single text. Not a single call. "Maybe there's bad traffic," I offered, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. Lily didn't answer. She just picked at a loose thread on her jeans. The bright, expectant light in her eyes was starting to dim, replaced by a familiar flicker of disappointment I knew all too well. It was a look I recognized from my own childhood. At 4 o'clock, the sun began to dip behind the neighbor's house, casting long, lonely shadows across the untouched party games. The silence wasn't just an absence of sound, it was a physical presence. It was heavy. It pressed down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. Each tick of the clock was a tiny hammer blow against my heart. I tried calling them. First, my mother. It rang and rang, then went to voicemail. Her mailbox was full. Of course, it was. Then Sharon. Straight to voicemail. Then Brenda. One ring, then a click. She declined the call. My internal monologue was a frantic, desperate scramble. There has to be a reason. A car accident. A family emergency. Something that makes sense. But deep down, in the cold, honest place I tried so hard to avoid, I knew. There was no emergency. There was no traffic. There was just them. And their monumental, soul-crushing indifference. At 4:45, Lily finally spoke. Her voice was small, fragile. "They're not coming, are they, Mom?" She wasn't asking a question. She was stating a fact. A fact that had settled over our perfect, empty party like a shroud. I looked at my beautiful, kind, 12-year-old daughter, who had spent weeks dreaming of this day, and I felt a rage so pure and so potent it almost buckled my knees. It wasn't just anger at them. It was at myself. For believing them. For setting my daughter up for this colossal heartbreak. "I'm sure something just came up, sweetie," I lied, and the lie was the most bitter thing I had ever tasted. "You know what? It's their loss. More cake for us." I tried to be cheerful. I turned on the movie projector, I made a giant bowl of popcorn, and we sat together on a blanket, the two of us, surrounded by the ghosts of the guests who never arrived. The cartoon characters on the giant screen laughed and danced, their bright colors a grotesque contrast to the gray misery in my heart. Lily tried to smile, she really did. She ate a slice of cake and pretended to watch the movie. But I saw her. I saw her sneak a glance at the gate every few minutes. I saw the single, silent tear that traced a path through the faint dusting of powdered sugar on her cheek. That night, after I tucked her into bed, after she whispered a heartbreakingly quiet, "Thanks for the party, Mom," I walked back into the silent house. The balloons seemed to mock me, their cheerful surfaces reflecting my own strained, hollow face. The half-eaten cake sat on the counter, a monument to my failure. I didn't clean up. I couldn't. I simply sank onto a kitchen chair and let the full weight of it wash over me. Decades of being the reliable one. Decades of showing up. And for what? To have my daughter's heart broken by their casual, careless cruelty. They didn't just forget a party. They sent a message. A clear, brutal message that we, my daughter and I, were not worth the gas in their cars. That our joy was an inconvenience. That we were, in the grand scheme of our own family, utterly and completely irrelevant. I sat there in the dark, surrounded by the debris of a little girl's ruined birthday, and I felt something inside me shift. It was a quiet, tectonic movement. The foundation of a lifetime of one-sided loyalty began to crack. And in those cracks, something new, something cold and hard and sharp, began to grow. I didn't know what it was yet. But I knew one thing for sure. I had shown up for them my entire life. And from that day forward, I was done. This wasn't just an oversight. It was a declaration of war. And they had no idea I was about to fight back. Part 2, the $1 insult and the siege. The 3 days following the party were a masterclass in gaslighting by silence. The quiet from my family was absolute. No calls, no texts, no emails with a flimsy excuse. It was as if Lily's birthday, and our very existence, had been wiped from their collective memory. I cleaned up the party debris in a haze of cold fury, each deflated balloon and discarded paper played a fresh sting. Lily was quiet, retreating into her books and her art, but I saw the hurt lingering in her eyes. It was a shadow I couldn't erase, and it fueled the fire that was now simmering just beneath my skin. I was oscillating between a deep, primal rage and a profound, hollow sorrow. Every time my phone buzzed with a notification from a friend or a work email, my heart would leap with a pathetic, conditioned hope, only to crash back down. They don't care. They just don't care. The realization echoed in the empty spaces of my house. Then, on the third day, my phone lit up with a text. It was from my mother, Carol. My breath caught in my throat. Here it is, I thought. The apology. The explanation. My mind raced with the excuses she might offer. "Oh Ellen, we're so sorry, Sharon's youngest came down with a terrible flu," or "Brenda's car broke down and my phone died." It was a whole fiasco. Any lie would have been better than the truth. I opened the message. My eyes scanned the words, and the world seemed to tilt on its axis. "Hey Ellen. We're collecting money for your niece's sweet 16. Can you send $5,000 by Friday?" I read it once. Then twice. Then a third time, convinced I must be hallucinating, that grief and anger had finally scrambled my brain. There was no apology. No acknowledgement. No mention of Lily, of the party, of their complete and utter abandonment. It was just a demand. A casual, breathtakingly arrogant demand for $5,000. For Sharon's daughter, Tiffany. The niece whose birthday was apparently a national holiday, while my own daughter's was a footnote not even worth mentioning. $5,000. The number seared itself into my brain. I thought of the $50 I'd spent on the custom balloons Lily had wanted so badly. The $200 for the screen rental. The ingredients for the cake. The small, carefully chosen gifts that now sat in a sad pile in her closet. And they wanted $5,000. Something inside me didn't just break, it vaporized. The part of me that had always made excuses for them, the part that had held on to hope, the part that had always forgiven, it was gone. In its place was a chilling, crystalline clarity. I stared at the blinking cursor on my phone. My fingers trembled, not with weakness, but with a surge of adrenaline I hadn't felt in years. I could scream. I could rage. I could send them a novel-length text detailing every single way they had failed me, failed my daughter. But I didn't. Rage is a hot, messy fire. What I felt now was cold. It was precise. It was the sharp, clean edge of a surgeon's scalpel. I took a deep breath, my heart hammering against my ribs. I navigated to my banking app. My hands were steady now. I set up a transfer. Recipient, Carol Parker. Amount, $1. In the memo line, where you might write, "for dinner," or "happy birthday," I typed a single, simple sentence. Congrats. Every dollar represents someone who showed up for my daughter. I pressed send. The satisfaction was immediate and immense. It was a small act, a petty act, some might say. But it felt like launching a cannonball. It was the first shot fired in a war I had just declared. I turned my phone on silent, placed it face down on the counter, and for the first time in 3 days, I breathed. It took exactly 57 minutes for the world to explode. My phone started vibrating against the granite countertop, a furious, insistent buzzing. The screen lit up with my mother's name. I let it go to voicemail. It immediately started ringing again. And again. And again. When she finally gave up, a text notification appeared. Then another. And another. Then my sister Sharon's name flashed on the screen. Then Brenda's. It was a digital siege. They were coordinating their attack. I pictured them in a group chat, their fingers flying across their screens. Can you believe what Ellen just did? The nerve. She has completely lost her mind. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened the text thread from my mother. It was a waterfall of incoherent rage. What is the meaning of this, Ellen? $1. Are you trying to humiliate me? Humiliate your niece? After everything I've done for you? This is the most childish, petty, vindictive thing you have ever done. You are ruining Tiffany's birthday out of sheer jealousy. Call me immediately. I didn't call. I read her words, and I felt nothing but a distant, clinical detachment. The accusations were so predictable, so perfectly aligned with her narcissistic worldview. I was the problem. My jealousy was the issue. The fact that they had collectively shattered my child's heart just a few days prior didn't even register in her reality. I blocked her number. Then I moved on to Sharon's texts. Hers were sharper, more vicious. I don't know what kind of sick game you're playing, Ellen, but you just made a huge mistake. You think you're so clever with your little note. You've embarrassed this entire family. Tiffany is crying her eyes out. I almost laughed at the sheer absurdity of it. Tiffany, a girl who received a new car for her 16th birthday, was crying over my $1 protest. The melodrama was pathetic. I blocked Sharon. Then Brenda. The silence that followed was blissful. I thought that was the end of it for the day. I was wrong. 2 days later, a Saturday afternoon, the real escalation began. I was in the living room with Lily, helping her with a school project. We had music playing, the windows were open, and for the first time all week, the atmosphere felt light, almost peaceful. Then came the banging. Not a knock. Not a polite rap. A heavy, furious pounding on the front door that shook the entire frame. Lily jumped, her eyes wide with fear. I knew instantly who it was. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. It was Sharon and Brenda. Their faces were contorted with rage, blotchy and red. They looked like gargoyles of fury. Ellen. Open this door right now. Sharon shrieked, her voice shrill enough to curdle milk. You can't just hide in there. We know you're home. You think you can get away with humiliating us? Brenda shouted, her fist hammering against the wood again. You owe Tiffany an apology. And you owe this family $5,000. My heart was pounding, but not with fear. It was with a strange sense of vindication. They were showing their true colors, right here on my doorstep, for the whole neighborhood to see. My first instinct was to hide, to wait for them to go away. But the new Ellen, the one forged in the silence of that disastrous birthday party, had other plans. I slowly, deliberately, double-checked the deadbolt. Click. Then I walked over to my small Bluetooth speaker, turned the volume up on the gentle jazz station I was listening to, and went to the kitchen. I opened the fridge, pulled out a bottle of chilled Sauvignon Blanc, and poured myself a generous glass. The smooth, cool jazz filled the house, a defiant counterpoint to the screeching and pounding at the door. I took a sip of wine, the crisp liquid a balm to my frayed nerves. I could still hear them shouting, their words becoming more and more unhinged, but they sounded distant now, like angry ghosts from a life I no longer lived. They were outside. I was inside. And there was a locked door between us. After about 15 minutes of their tirade, they finally gave up. Their parting shot a screamed promise that I would regret this forever. I watched through the window as they stomped back to their car and sped away. The quiet that descended was the most profound peace I had ever known. It was the peace of a battle finally met, a boundary finally drawn. But the final act of their desperate, flailing attack was yet to come. And it was more audacious than I could have ever imagined. The next afternoon, as I was weeding the garden, a police car pulled up to my curb. 2 officers got out, a man and a woman, their expressions calm and professional. My blood ran cold. What have they done now? The male officer approached me. Ma'am? Are you Ellen Parker? Yes, I said, my voice barely a whisper. My mind was racing. Had they claimed I threatened them? Vandalized their property in some imagined retaliation? We received a call from a Carol Parker, he began, consulting his notepad. She's claiming that you've stolen a significant amount of money from her. Money that was being collected for a family event. I stared at him, dumbfounded. It was a move of such breathtaking audacity, such malignant delusion, that I couldn't immediately process it. They had actually called the police on me. They were trying to use the law to enforce their entitlement. The officer was watching me, his eyes neutral but observant. And in that moment, the last vestiges of my fear burned away, replaced by an icy, unshakable resolve. They had pushed me too far. This was no longer about a ruined party or a petty insult. This was about my sanity, my integrity, my name. Officer, I said, my voice calm and steady, I think I can clear this up very easily. Would you mind coming inside? He nodded. I led both officers into my house, my heart no longer pounding with fear, but with the steady, rhythmic beat of a drummer heading into a righteous war. They thought they could use authority to bully me back into submission. They were about to find out that the only thing they had done was hand me the ultimate weapon, validation. And I was about to use it to build the very foundation of my revenge. Part 3, The Architecture of Payback. The air in my living room was thick with a surreal tension. 2 uniformed police officers stood on my rug, their presence an absurd monument to my family's delusion. For a fleeting moment, a lifetime of conditioning kicked in, the instinct to be agreeable, to smooth things over, to manage everyone's feelings. Then I looked at their calm, professional faces, and I remembered the fury in my sister's eyes and the venom in my mother's texts. That old Ellen was gone. A new one was in her place, and she was done being agreeable. Please, have a seat, I said, gesturing to the sofa. They remained standing. The female officer spoke, her tone gentle but firm. Ma'am, the complainant, your mother, alleges that you were responsible for collecting $5,000 for a family fund and that you've absconded with it. I had to physically restrain myself from laughing. A family fund? That's a creative way to put it. I picked up my phone from the coffee table. Officers, I haven't stolen anything. I believe this is let's call it a domestic dispute that has gotten wildly out of hand. If you'll allow me, I can show you the entirety of the communication I've had with my family this week. I opened my messages, my hands perfectly steady. I showed them my mother's initial text. The blunt, unapologetic demand for $5,000. I pointed to the date and time stamp, then cross-referenced it with my calendar. This demand, I explained, my voice level and clear, was sent to me 3 days after my daughter's 12th birthday party. A party to which my mother, my 2 sisters, and their entire families were invited, and to which not a single one of them showed up. There was no call, no text, no excuse. Just silence. I saw a flicker of something in the male officer's eyes. It was understanding. And this, I continued, scrolling down, was my reply. I showed them the $1 bank transfer. I showed them the memo line, congrats. Every dollar represents someone who showed up for my daughter. The male officer's lips twitched. He fought it, but a small, almost imperceptible smirk appeared for a fraction of a second before he regained his professional composure. It was tiny, but to me, it was a blinding beacon of validation. He got it. He saw the story for what it was. Finally, I showed them the barrage of furious, abusive text messages from my mother and sisters, followed by my decision to block them. They then came to my house 2 days ago, I added, and spent 15 minutes pounding on my door and screaming at me from my own front porch. My daughter was here. She heard all of it. The officers exchanged a look. The female officer cleared her throat. And you have not had any verbal contact with them since? None, I confirmed. I have not spoken to them. I have not threatened them. I have not, as you can see, stolen a family fund that never existed. I was asked for money, and I declined in what I suppose was a theatrical way. The male officer finally broke his silence. He looked at me, not with suspicion, but with a weary sort of empathy. "Ma'am," he said, and the smirk was back, "just for a second, you're not in any trouble. There's no theft here. This is a civil matter, if it's anything at all. But I will say, your family sounds exhausting." The words hit me with the force of a tidal wave. Exhausting. One word. One simple, off-the-cuff remark from a complete stranger, and it was as if the sun had come out after a 40-year storm. For my entire life, I had been the one navigating their moods, managing their crises, absorbing their toxicity. I had been made to feel that my exhaustion was a personal failing, a sign of my own weakness. But this man, this objective outsider, saw it in less than 10 minutes. It wasn't me. It was them. After they left, assuring me they would be filing a report and advising my mother that any further harassment could have consequences for her, I felt a profound shift inside me. The anger, the hurt, the grief, they were all still there, but they had been transmuted into something else. Something powerful. A cold, quiet, diamond-hard resolve. The police visit wasn't the end of their attack. It was the beginning of my liberation. It was the moment I realized they had no real power over me. All they had were tantrums and intimidation, the tools of bullies and children. And I was no longer afraid. That evening, I began what I started to call the Great Untangling. I changed the locks on my doors. I went through my phone and social media, methodically blocking not just my mother and sisters, but any of their flying monkeys, those extended family members and mutual friends who would surely be weaponized to deliver guilt-laden messages. I was creating a fortress of silence. But a fortress isn't just about keeping people out. It's about protecting what's inside. And what was inside was me and Lily. The revenge couldn't just be about punishing them, it had to be about healing us. The $5,000 became a symbol. To them, it was a debt I owed, a tribute to their entitlement. To me, it was now something else entirely. It was my liberation fund. My ticket out of the family I was born into and into the one I would choose. But simply not giving it to them wasn't enough. That was defense. I wanted to play offense. I wanted my response to be as public and as humiliating as their behavior had been, but I wanted to do it with a grace and class they could never touch. I wanted to wield my dignity like a weapon. The plan began to form in my mind over several sleepless nights. It wasn't a lightning bolt of inspiration, but a slow, meticulous construction, like building a beautiful, intricate bomb. Phase 1, Reconnaissance. My sister Sharon, Tiffany's mother, was obsessed with social status. Her life was a carefully curated performance of upper-middle-class perfection. She was the president of her neighborhood association, a prominent member of the PDA, and her Facebook page was a relentless stream of photos from charity galas, country club tennis matches, and expensive vacations. Her public image was her armor. And I knew that was where I had to strike. I reactivated an old, anonymous Facebook profile I'd made years ago to follow a few hobby pages. For the next few weeks, I became a digital ghost. I studied Sharon's social circle. I noted the charities she publicly supported, the ones where she made sure to get her photo taken for the local newsletter. I saw the posts about Tiffany's upcoming Sweet 16. It was going to be an absurdly lavish affair at a local historic hotel, with a live band, a custom Snapchat filter, and a guest list of over 100 people. The theme was, I kid you not, a night in Paris. In our suburban town. The sheer pretension was staggering. Phase 2, choosing the weapon. I researched local charities. I didn't want a big national one where my donation would be a drop in the ocean. I wanted something local, respected, and, this was the key, something that Sharon's social circle admired but that she herself only paid lip service to. I found the perfect one, the Lily Pad Project. It was a shelter and support center for single mothers and their children who were escaping domestic abuse or homelessness. It was a small, grassroots organization with a sterling reputation. Everyone in town knew of their good work. And the name. The Lily Pad Project. It was perfect. A tribute to my own Lily. Phase 3, the strategy. Simply donating the money wasn't enough. The execution had to be flawless. I wanted to turn their demand for money into a public monument to their own hypocrisy. I called the director of the Lily Pad Project, a warm, kind woman named Maria. I didn't tell her the whole sordid story, just that I was looking to make a significant, one-time donation of $5,000. I had one specific request. I told her I wanted the donation to be publicly acknowledged, but in a very particular way. I'd like the donation to be made in honor of my niece's 16th birthday, I explained. Her name is Tiffany Parker. And I would love it if you could use the funds to throw a series of birthday celebrations for the children currently living at the shelter. Cake, presents, balloons, the works. For all the kids whose birthdays fall in the next few months. Maria was speechless for a moment. Miss Parker, she finally said, her voice thick with emotion, that is one of the most thoughtful and generous ideas I have ever heard. Of course, we can do that. We would be honored. There's one more thing, I said, my heart beginning to race with the thrill of the scheme. The party for my niece is on October 25th. Could you possibly make the public announcement of the donation on your organization's Facebook page on the morning of the 25th? I could almost hear her smile through the phone. Consider it done. Phase 4, the personal touch. The public element was for Sharon and my mother. But I had something special planned just for Tiffany. I didn't blame the girl for her parents' behavior, but she was a product of their entitled world. She needed to be part of the lesson. I went to a high-end stationery store. I bought a beautiful, expensive card. Inside, I wrote a note in my best calligraphy. Dearest Tiffany, a very happy sweet 16. I wanted to mark this momentous occasion with a gift that reflects the beautiful young woman you are becoming, one full of grace, compassion, and generosity. In your honor, a donation has been made to help children less fortunate than you celebrate their own special days. May your life always be as full of giving as it is of receiving. With all my love, Aunt Ellen. I didn't mention the amount. I didn't mention the family drama. The message was pure, saccharine poison. It was unimpeachable. How could anyone object to such a charitable, loving sentiment? But I wasn't just sending a card. I contacted a local framing shop and had a high-quality certificate printed, a mock-up of the donation acknowledgement. It read, $5,000 donated to the Lily Pad Project in honor of the sweet 16th birthday of Tiffany Parker. I had it placed in an elegant, silver frame. This framed certificate and the card would be delivered by courier to the hotel venue on the day of the party, with instructions to be given directly to Tiffany. It would arrive in the middle of her night in Paris, a beautiful, silent testament to the aunt who wasn't there. A conversation piece. A grenade disguised as a gift. As the date of the party drew closer, I felt a calm I hadn't experienced in years. I was no longer a victim reacting to their abuse. I was an architect. I was building a new reality, and the blueprints were all my own. I took Lily out for a special dinner on the night I finalized the donation. We didn't talk about them. We talked about her school, her friends, her dreams. We laughed. And as I watched her, her face animated and happy, I knew I had made the right choice. My revenge wasn't just about tearing them down, it was about building us up. The $5,000 was the best money I had ever spent. It was the price of my peace. And the show was about to begin. Part 4, The Fallout and the Quiet. The morning of October 25th dawned gray and overcast, a fittingly dramatic backdrop for the day's events. I woke up feeling a strange mix of nervous energy and profound serenity. I made coffee, sat at my kitchen table, and opened my laptop. It was 9 a.m. As promised, the lily pad project had made their post. It was beautiful. They had used a cheerful, bright graphic with balloons and confetti. The text was warm and effusive. A huge thank you to the incredibly generous Ellen Parker for her transformative $5,000 donation. This gift was made in honor of her niece, Tiffany Parker, on her sweet 16th birthday. Thanks to Ellen's compassion, we will be funding birthday bashes for every child at our shelter for the next 6 months, ensuring they all get the joyful celebration they deserve. Happy birthday, Tiffany. What a wonderful way to spread kindness on your special day. They had tagged my sister Sharon. I watched, mesmerized, as the post began to gain traction. The first like appeared. Then another. Then a comment. It was from a woman I recognized as one of the queen bees of Sharon's social circle. Sharon Parker, this is just wonderful. You must be so proud. What a beautiful, selfless young woman you've raised. Another one popped up. Wow. In a world where so many kids are just about getting, this is about giving. Incredible. Kudos to your family. What a testament to your family's values. The comments kept rolling in, a cascade of public praise directed at a family who, I knew, was just waking up to a living nightmare. I pictured Sharon, scrolling through her phone over her morning latte, her eyes widening in horror. She couldn't untag herself, that would look suspicious. She couldn't delete the post. She couldn't possibly complain about a massive donation to a beloved children's charity made in her daughter's name. She was trapped. Checkmated by my kindness. Her phone would be blowing up with messages from friends congratulating her on this wonderful gesture, all while she was stewing in the knowledge that it was an act of war from the sister she had tried to have arrested. The cognitive dissonance must have been deafening. I spent the day with Lily. We went to a museum, had lunch at her favorite cafe, and took a long walk in the park. I kept my phone on silent in my purse, refusing to let their inevitable meltdown intrude on our peace. This day was about reclaiming our joy, not reveling in their misery. Well, maybe a little. At around 4 p.m., I received a notification from the courier service. The package, the framed certificate and the card, had been successfully delivered to the hotel and signed for by the event coordinator. The second missile was airborne. That evening, I imagined the scene. Tiffany, in a gown that likely cost more than my mortgage payment, surrounded by her friends. The party in full swing. Then, a hotel staff member approaches with a beautifully wrapped, flat package. She opens it. First, the card with its sweet, poisonous message of love and generosity. Then, the frame. The bold, elegant text proclaiming the $5,000 donation in her name. It wouldn't be a dramatic, movie-like explosion. It would be quieter, more insidious. Her friends would crowd around. Wow, Tiffany, what's that? Your aunt donated $5,000 for your birthday. That's amazing. She would be forced to smile, to accept the praise for a gesture that was a direct, calculated rebuke of her family's values. Sharon and my mother, standing nearby, would have to play along, their faces stretched into masks of proud delight while inside, they were surely incandescent with rage. The donation would become the talk of the party, a beautiful, unassailable act of charity that completely undermined the grotesque consumerism of the event itself. The first crack in my wall of silence came at 10:17 p.m. A text from an unknown number. You are a sick, twisted witch. You ruined everything. I knew it was Sharon, using a friend's phone. I deleted it without replying. Then came the blocked calls. A flood of them. Dozens of attempts from numbers I didn't recognize. They were desperate, clawing at the walls of the fortress I had built. It was a pathetic, frantic scrabbling that only reinforced how right I had been. But the true sign of my victory arrived 3 weeks later. By then, the dust had settled. I had heard through the grapevine, a neutral cousin who had wisely stayed out of the fray, that the party had been an awkward affair, with Sharon and my mother forced to field endless compliments about their wonderful family charity. The story had taken on a life of its own in their social circle. The Parkers were now seen as this wonderfully philanthropic family, a reputation that Sharon would have to spend a fortune to maintain. It was a Tuesday night. I was helping Lily with her homework when my phone buzzed with a notification, voicemail from a blocked number. My carrier has a feature that still allows blocked callers to leave a message that goes into a separate, silent folder. Curiosity piqued, I opened it. It was my mother's voice. But it wasn't the voice of rage I had come to expect. It was different. It was thin, reedy, and laced with a pathetic, cloying attempt at sweetness that she only ever used for manipulation. Ellen? It's Mom, the voice began, full of false emotion. I know we've had our disagreements. Things were said. But, it's been a while now. We miss you. The family isn't the same without you. A long pause, filled with what I'm sure was meant to be dramatic weight. Sharon's having a hard time. All this, pressure. And Brenda's husband, well, you know how he is. I thought maybe we could all sit down. Talk things through. Make things right. We miss you, Ellen. I listened to the message twice. I analyzed every word. The fake tears. The vague, sweeping non-apologies. Disagreements. Things were said. And the classic narcissistic pivot, framing her daughter's adult problems as something I, the family fixer, was needed to solve. She wasn't apologizing. She was recruiting. The load-bearing wall had been removed, and the roof was starting to sag. They didn't miss me. They missed my function. They missed the convenience of my endless, unappreciated labor. I thought about Lily's face on her birthday. I thought about the police officers in my living room. I thought about the fury at my front door. I thought about the years of being a dependable appliance, to be used and ignored at will. And I pressed delete. The voicemail vanished into the digital ether. My finger hovered over the block number function for the unknown number and I pressed it without hesitation. Another brick in the wall. It's been 6 months since that day. I haven't heard from them again. My life is quiet now. It's a peaceful, intentional quiet, not the heavy, painful silence of being ignored. Lily is thriving. She's joined the school theater club and her light is shining brighter than ever, no longer dimmed by the shadow of their neglect. A few weeks ago, I received a packet in the mail from the Lily Pad Project. It was a thick envelope filled with thank you cards handmade by the children at the shelter. There were crayon drawings of lopsided birthday cakes, smiling stick figures, and wobbly letters spelling out, "Thank you." One little boy, a 7-year-old named Sam, had drawn a picture of himself wearing a birthday crown. On it, his mom had helped him write, "This was the best day ever." I framed that one. It's on my mantelpiece now. It's a reminder that my $5,000 didn't just buy my freedom. It bought joy. Real, genuine joy for children who deserved it, a world away from the hollow, performative celebration it was meant to fund. My family taught me a brutal lesson about betrayal. But I taught them a more enduring one. They learned that the reliable one had a breaking point. They learned that actions have consequences. And they learned that sometimes, the most devastating revenge isn't a loud, angry battle, but a quiet, final click of a locked door, and the simple, powerful act of moving on. They are on the outside now, in the cold. And my daughter and I? We are finally free. The need to be seen, to be valued, especially by our own family, is one of the most fundamental parts of being human. And when that's denied, it can feel like you're screaming into a void. Ellen's story is a powerful reminder that sometimes, the only way to win a game that's rigged against you is to stop playing. You have to build your own game, with your own rules. What did you think of Ellen's revenge? Was it the perfect, classy checkmate, or would you have done something different? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you have a story you think the world needs to hear, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you for listening, and until next time, take care of yourselves, and don't be afraid to lock the door when you need to.